Today I'm going to be talking about the three insanely stupid mistakes that this person did when he was falsely accused of a crime. Recently, the family of this person who was falsely accused of rape came to me and discussed their case, and I told them that these were three fatal mistakes they made, because of which their relative has been in custody for way longer than he was required to be in any other situation. The first mistake that this person did was in a false allegation of rape after filing of anticipatory bail, when the court did not give interim protection from arrest to the applicant. During the pendency of this anticipatory bail application, the accused person still went and met the investigating officer in the case from time to time, thinking that because we have negotiated or talked in a friendly way with the investigating officer, we will have no difficulty with the police. One of these police visits, the police comes and says, all right, the investigating officer says, today I have instructions from above, I have to arrest you no matter what, I am sorry. And I've seen this happen on several occasions when the person thinks that they, after giving some money to the police, they are, scot free and they will not face any problem. The money goes out of your pockets and you also go inside the jail as well. The second mistake that the accused person did, or rather his family did, was when they hired a lawyer, they moved for anticipatory bail, and which after the arrest became infructuous, so it was dismissed as withdrawn, dismissed as infructuous. After that, they moved a regular bail application before the sessions court because this was a rape case, and the court adjourned the matter for two or three occasions, and that too for periods such as 15, 20, 30 days. I was surprised. I asked them why. I looked at the order and then I realized that the sessions court specifically noted in the order sheet that at the request of the council, this matter has been adjourned for for around a month, which is absurd because at least in the district courts, at least in the glorious city of New Delhi where I practice law, judges will give you adjournments for maybe 4 or 5 or 10 days at the very maximum if the person is in custody. And long dates have been given, and my client says if bail has to be rejected, then it's better to get an adjournment, is it not? And I had to explain them that sessions court judges, as I have talked about on earlier occasions as well, are very reluctant in giving bail, anticipatory or regular, to an accused person, especially accused of heinous offences, and that you have a much better chance of securing bail from the high court anyways. And therefore, even if the sessions court judge is dismissing your bail application, it makes sense to still move the high court, accept that rejection of your application and move the high court. Yet the lawyer for this client kept taking adjournments again and again, and that was the second fatal, not fatal, but very stupid mistake that was done. Third mistake was that during the pendency of this bail application, the charge sheet was filed in this rape case by the police. And when I asked these people that if the order sheet itself reflects that the charge sheet has been filed, that to 12, 13 days ago, did you get a copy of the charge sheet or not? And they said we did not. And I told them that they should have tried to get a copy of the charge sheet. Now, of course, I have to talk about, when I say this, I have to talk about the judgment of Miss, I don't remember, is it Miss X or Miss A versus the state of Uttar Pradesh, which was delivered recently by the Honorable Supreme Court, I think around September or October of 2020, by a three-judge bench, which said that the accused person is not entitled to a copy of the charge sheet until the appropriate time of section 207 and 208 of the Criminal Procedure Code. And therefore, because in this particular matter the charge sheet was filed but the magistrate had till then not taken cognizance and issued summons to the accused person, who is in judicial custody even now, technically yes, the client cannot apply for a copy of the charge sheet. However, as a matter of procedure, this happens all the time. There is still a little bit of a gray area around it, which lawyers are able to exploit. I'm not even sure whether it is technically legal or not, but we are duly going through the process of the law. We are not doing anything illegal. And in this particular situation as well, I told them that you should try to obtain a copy of the charge sheet. Now, if you can't get a copy of the charge sheet, do at least what then I did for these clients, which is to apply for inspection of the court file. So, my associate went to the court of the magistrate where the charge sheet was filed. He moved an application for inspection of the court file, and then at his own leisure, spending about 2-3 hours, he was able to note down all the statements of the witnesses collected by the investigating officer, which formed the part of the charge sheet, which, if people who are aware of the whole concept of charge sheet, consists of nothing but the FIR, some preliminary investigation done by the investigating officer, and then after that it is the culmination of all the statements of all the witnesses which have been collected by the investigating officer. So my associate went, sat down with a pen and paper, and made detailed notes of all of the statements which have been recorded of all the parties which were there in the charge sheet. So even if we did not have a copy of the charge sheet, which we will get perhaps a week or 10 days from the date of the recording of this video, at least we were able to note down the statements of the uh, complainant in this particular case, which we will now be able to use in the application for bail, which is about to come up in a couple of days. I don't know what the outcome will be because it is a serious offense. However, at the very least, these three prudent, or in this case, stupid mistakes that were committed should have been taken care of by a more prudent lawyer and even a prudent litigant for that matter. So, to recap, first and foremost, if you're applied for anticipatory bail, you yourself should never go and meet the police officer. If you do, there is always that little bit of a chance that they may arrest you. Second, if you are filing your bail application, be it anticipatory bail, be it regular bail, before a sessions court, it does not make sense for you to get an adjournment in it if the judge is not inclined to give you bail. Instead, just get it dismissed and apply before the High Court itself, where you have a far better chance of having a decent judge who will listen to you and your arguments on merit, and then there is a far greater chance of you then getting bail. The third one is, at least make an effort. At the very, like at the worst case scenario is the magistrate before whom you apply for a copy of the charge sheet rejects your application because of this recent Supreme Court judgment. Or even if you do what I did, which is move an application for inspection of the court file, even that is rejected. It's all right, but if you don't even try, you would not be able to succeed in these little endeavors like my associate was able to succeed. And you give up a very, very valuable thing that you could have gotten otherwise. Now, just because of doing this little thing, this client has a little bit of a better chance at getting bail, because now we'll be able to read out to the judge that this was said by the victim, so-called victim complainant, in her FIR. This is the discrepancy between what she said in the FIR and what she said in her statement under section 161 of the Criminal Procedure Code, and ultimately what was also said by her in her testimony under section 164 of the Criminal Procedure Code. And apart from that, what are the other evidences which are there? There is the medical reports, there is the statements of the other witnesses, and everything else that the investigating officer has done. These are a couple of things that you need to keep in your mind when you are trying to kind of work for your client, or you are the litigant who is there facing criminal charges. These are a few things you can be kind of mindful about and get a little be a little more prepared and put in and have a better shot at that success in your courtroom.